Dr. Ravi Batra has a new book out, friend of the show, longtime guest. He's the Economist, professor of economics at Southern Methodist University, SMU, and author of a brand new book, End Unemployment Now, How to Eliminate Joblessness, Debt, and Poverty Despite Congress. He is also, of course, the author of The New Golden Age, The Coming Revolution Against Political Corruption and Economic Chaos, and Greenspan's Fraud, How 2 decades of his policies have undermined the global economy. His website is ravibatra.com, RAVIBATRA.com. Dr. Batra, welcome back.
Thanks a lot.
It's great to have you with us. So tell us about your book. How do we end poverty and joblessness and debt despite Congress?
Well, we have seen that Congress, Democrats and Republicans are always fighting with each other, and nothing really gets done. And over the past 6-7 years, debt has gone up by $8 trillion, whereas total number of jobs is the same as it was in 2007. And so they have spent about $1 million for each job they have preserved, and the job pays only $50,000 on average. So now you can see why we have this poverty in the economy, because wages are not rising while productivity keeps rising, and that's why there is supply is ahead of demand, and there is a lot of unemployment still there. So I thought of why don't I do something to discover laws which the president could use without having to go through Congress. And I found that there are a number of laws that he can use through his own agencies, like the FDIC or the CFTC, which is the futures trading agency. And then through these laws, he can bring down interest rates on credit cards from the current average of 15% to just 5%. And that would be a tax cut of 10%, a permanent tax cut for the poor and the middle class, and he can do it through his FDIC.
He can just impose that? I mean, the banksters would go nuts.
Well, see, the FDIC is supposed to, it has two tasks assigned to it. One is to protect the depositors, and the other is to protect the consumers.
Right.
Now, these banks have the largest profit margin now on their loans in the past 30 years, thanks to the fact that they can borrow money at zero interest rates from the Federal Reserve. But they have increased credit card rates on the poor and the middle class, so their profit margin is very high, and so are their profits, and those profits show up in the CEO incomes. So if the president were to use the law, it doesn't have to use an executive order. There is a law which says that the FDIC can start a bank. It's called a bridge bank, and then instead of selling the bank to another big bank, they can just appoint their own managers and tell them to charge only 5% interest on credit card loans, because they also would get money free from the Federal Reserve.
So you're suggesting essentially that a federal agency can create a banking corporation that can issue credit cards and compete with the big banks on the basis of interest rates. And if people move to those low interest rate credit cards, it would be the same thing as a tax cut, which would stimulate the economy. It's more money in their pockets, less money for the banksters. Am I understanding that right?
That's exactly correct. And the fact is that this law was passed in 1987, which authorized the FDIC to start its own bank. It's known as a bridge bank, and they don't have to sell it to another large bank like Bank of America. Now, the ideal thing would be to break up all these large banks and create more competition in the industry, but Congress, would never allow that. So we can bypass Congress. The president can bypass Congress by creating an FDIC bank.
Wow. Okay, so that's one of the ways that this can be done.
That's one of the ways. The other way is with the Federal Reserve destroying the interest rates. Interest rates are way down, so as a result, the retirees have suffered a lot. So I'm suggesting that to compensate the retirees, the government should offer 5-year bonds to the retirees at a fixed interest rate of 3.5%. And that would also bring down poverty quite a lot. And borrowing costs will not rise because on the long-term bonds, they are paying more than the government is paying more than 3% anyway.
Right.
So this will not raise the government's borrowing costs, but it will make a big difference to the incomes of retirees.
Huh.
And that's another thing that could be done without going through Congress. And then about oil. There is a CFTC is the oil futures trading agency, again under the head and control of the president. Right now, you have to pay only 6% down to buy $100 of oil, futures oil. To speculate in oil, all you have to put down is 6%. And I'm suggesting let's treat these oil futures on the same level, in the same way as we treat stocks. To buy $100 of stocks, you have to pay down 50%.
Right.
So
which is a remnant of the great crash in '29 when people were buying stocks on 5 and 10% margins. Do I have that right?
That's right. And now they're doing the same thing to oil. Right. Now this oil, in the past, when oil went up, there was a recession, and then oil came down sharply, and that helped bring about recovery. This time it hasn't happened. Even in 1998, there was a minor recession in the world, and the oil was down to, believe me or not, $8.64. In December 1998, it was down to $8.64 per barrel.
Right.
Now we have the worst recession since 2007, and since the 1930s, I mean, and oil is still about $60. It's all because of high speculation in that area.
Right.
And if you were to raise this down payment on oil, it will come down to less than $20 a barrel, and that would be another big tax cut for the middle class and the poor.
Wow.
And again, the government, the Congress doesn't have to be consulted. You don't have to break up the oil companies, which is next to impossible right now. So just do this. So there are a lot of other things can be done. The president could balance trade. We could have free trade, but at least let's have balanced free trade so that we have no trade deficit with China and Japan.
Right. We had a $50 billion trade deficit last month. I have heard that every $1 billion of trade deficit means 1,000 or 10,000 lost American jobs. Is that?
That's right. 10,000 lost American jobs and 10,000 manufacturing jobs are lost, which pay higher wages. So it's a big drain on the nation's economy. If we were to, and I suggested how we can balance our trade with China and Japan very easily, and if we were to do that, we would create 5 million new jobs right away.
Yeah.
Why right away? Because the factories are already here. They are standing idle. And if those idle factories are utilized, we create 5 million manufacturing jobs right away.
Amazing. Well, I hope that your book makes its way to the White House and into the hands of every member of Congress, but particularly to the White House. This sounds extraordinary. I know you kind of previewed this for us about 6 months ago, I guess, when you were writing it, when you were on the show.
That's right. And I'm hoping that I could team up with Senator Bernie Sanders, and I could show him that we don't have to raise government spending or raise taxes. All we have to do is to create competition.
Yeah.
For these giants.
Well, you should certainly send a copy of your book to his office.
I have contacted his office, and I'll try to send a copy.
That's
to him
great.
Also.
Dr. Ravi Batra. Dr. Batra, we're out of time, but thank you so much for coming on, for sharing your ideas with us, for writing this book. The new book, Dr. Batra, professor of economics at SMU, his new book is called End Unemployment Now, How to Eliminate Joblessness, Debt, and Poverty Despite Congress. His website, Ravi Batra, RAVIBATRA.com. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.